You have to make your own stuff. So I'm so sorry, but you're not going to get hired any other way. You got to write a pilot. You got to fucking shoot a web series. I know so many people who are like, how do I get a job writing? And it's like, do you have a sample? No. Bitch.
I'm Charla Lauriston, a stand-up comedian, writer, director, and producer, and this is the Working Writer Podcast, where screenwriters, creatives, and industry insiders share their stories of breaking in hopes that it helps you along your path. I'm so excited you could join us. If you like what you hear, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Without further ado, let's get to work. What's up, guys? Thank you so much for tuning back into the Working Writer Podcast. I really appreciate it. I'm excited, as usual, to bring you this week's episode. Our guest today is the multi-talented Monique Moses. Mo was most recently a co-head writer and co-executive producer for HBO's A Black Lady sketch show, and she's also a member of the Black comedy team Astronomy Club, where she co-created, co-wrote, and co-starred in Astronomy Club, the sketch show on Netflix. I met Mo back in New York when we were both fledgling improvisers. We were taking classes at the Pit, aka the People's Improv Theater. We formed an improv team together along with some other people of color that we called the Day Camp Kids. We toured together at festivals around the country as a team. We performed bi-weekly together at the Pit at a show that we called Tug of War, where we would invite other improv teams to come on and compete for a chance to perform at the following week's show. It was a really fun time. In this conversation with Mo, we talk about her journey to the writer's room and to the screen, what it's been like now working as a producer, and Monique gives her very honest advice on breaking into TV. It's a super fun episode. But before we get to it, I wanted to let you know that we've got another live virtual workshop coming up at the Working Writers School this July. I'll be joined by the wonderful Ben Axelrad, and our focus this time around will be on breaking story. If you're working on something and you need some guidance and some structure, then this story workshop might be right for you. So sign up and join us. The link will be in the description below for your tickets to our July workshop. And now, without further ado, here is my very fun episode with the wonderful Monique Moses. Monique Moses, welcome to the podcast. I had a little mistake there at first. It looked like my computer was crashing, but then it didn't. So we're good.
It wasn't. I'm so happy your computer's excited that I'm here, because I'm excited that I'm here.
Yeah, that's what it was. I'm so excited to have you. I usually start the podcast with, where are you from and what is your cultural background?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Canadian. I grew up in a town 2 hours west of Toronto called London. Born in Windsor, which is like right across from Detroit, but had my formative years in London and surrounding area. And then my cultural background is I'm Caribbean Canadian. My mom's Jamaican. My dad's from Grenada.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Mo, I wasn't even trying to find another Caribbean. I straight up thought you were regular Canadian Black. You know, I'm in Vancouver and there's so few Caribbeans over on this side. It's all Africans.
It's very actually rare to find a Canadian Black, like someone who emigrated from America, to be honest, because it was through the Underground Railroad and been in Canada for that long. Most of us are immigrants.
No way.
Yeah.
Because I straight up been trying to find like just straight up regular Canadian Blacks. And there are some, but for the vast majority, I've met like Caribbeans and Africans who immigrated. And you don't just meet just like regular Canadian Blacks. I don't know where they are.
I have a friend who's from Winnipeg and her family's been there for like 150 years or something. But she's the only one I've ever met.
Wow. It's a weird place. There's a lot of Canadians in the TV industry though. Is it me or is like every other person Canadian?
I think yes. I think every other person you meet, especially this whole week, if you go to the store, they're going to be Canadian. No, just kidding. I don't need to be funny. No, they are Canadian because our industry is very small and it has a bit of a glass ceiling.
Yeah.
And so if you want to excel in it, you have to leave.
You have to leave. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that? Because I've been in Vancouver for 2 years. I've tried a little bit to check out and scope out the Canadian industry.
Yeah.
First of all, my reps have discouraged me from trying to work here, which I've noticed.
Wow. Yeah.
The first thing is like, they keep reminding me that I'm not going to get paid as much, and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, all right, so there's that. The pay is not as much. And it just seems like so much of the industry here depends on what's happening in America.
Yeah.
Which to me makes the industry here feel very insecure. For instance, there's a potential writer strike that is swirling in the air right now, as of the recording of this podcast. If that happens and production grinds to a halt, what is Canada going to do? I mean, you're a Canadian business strategist, right?
Yes.
You would know.
So it's really interesting that you say insecure, and I don't want to get any hate from Canadians, but what my own opinions and what I've noticed is that a lot of our cultural national identity is like in reference to America. Always kind of has been.
That's what I've noticed.
Either we shit on Americans or we are comparing ourselves to Americans, or even in this industry, a Canadian will go to America, do work, and then come back and be
elevated.
Yeah,
they're revered.
Yeah, they're revered. That's the word.
Coming from America has like more weight than just being a Canadian, which I find so weird. It's what I have found from being here. I find the industry very, very weird here.
Yeah, it's sad. We really want to, and we do have our own very, very strong cultural and national identity as well. But I also have noticed that it relies on the American industry, like you said before. Another thing I've noticed is that I left in 2008, and my background is like I was an actor performer who wrote creatively as a kid, and then when I moved to New York and was doing UCB and the Pit and all these improv schools, noticed that like I needed to write my own characters and write my own sketches in order to do anything that I thought was funny enough or that I enjoyed doing to give myself opportunities. And that's my avenue into writing professionally. It's sad because I left as an actor and a dramaturge and like as a playwright and a writer and a dancer from Canada, from Toronto.
Oh, wow.
And I'll look back and I'll be like, people that were my mentors, people that I trained with are still in the same place. And it is not any reference to their talent or the work that they're trying to do. They are hustling. It's just, the industry is...
There's nowhere to go here.
Yeah, there's nothing.
I've met incredibly talented people here. It's really crazy.
Incredibly talented.
It makes me think of two things. The first thing it makes me think of is, wow, we're so extremely privileged to be in the American Hollywood system with all of its problems, with all of its inconsistencies or whatever. We could live in places where you can have the talent and there's nowhere to go. But that's not the case if you're a US citizen. It's one of the things that I always get so frustrated with as an immigrant. I'm an immigrant from Haiti. I was born in Haiti. I came to America. And even as a kid, I understood the privilege I have being in America. Despite, it's 2023 right now and America's in shambles, and you're still at an incredible privilege to be in America. Even instead of a place like Canada, if you want to be a writer or a performer or an actor. Like, I find it crazy. The second thing is I think that Canada is completely not living up to its potential. Like, it has so much talent. It doesn't seem like there's anybody invested in creating the infrastructure, or there's no business vehicle behind it, because America is so business driven. It's such a huge industry in America. It just seems like in Canada, nobody's trying to make money. I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah, I mean, also, this is, I guess, we're only speaking for the film and TV industry because, theater is a thriving industry, I think, in Canada. And a lot of amazing performers are working through that system as well. Another thing is the population is like, I feel so dumb for not knowing this, but it is, I think, like 1/10 of America's population.
It's small.
It's small. We have a lot of space, a lot of land, but the population is very small.
It's tiny.
And so the money making, I don't know where the money's coming from, but it's not coming from the Canadian population or the kind of money that you can make in the States. You can't make here. And I think that's just the nature of it, because I think of other countries as well and their industries. You know what I mean? Everybody is trying to leave their countries and come to America, so it just, America has created this hegemony of cultural content.
It really has.
That's like 100-year-old system. Other countries can't really compete,
But in my opinion, other countries are competing. You have Bollywood, you have Nollywood. You have 100%. These other countries.
South Korea. You know how I feel about it.
I know you're a K-pop legend. You're an absolute legend. So I'm just like...
fiend.
Yeah, I don't believe that it isn't possible to compete in any way and in a very culturally specific
You're
way.
right. Yeah.
You go to Nollywood and Bollywood for Indian and Nigerian fare. You go for the drama girl.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? you go for the outfits, baby. You go for the dances. You go for the witchcraft or whatever. And the Nigerian Bollywood is absolutely nuts. And it's my favorite thing to watch ever. It's insane. It's
oh my God, I need to watch
and
more.
it's specific to them. Yeah, I think you can find some more stuff on Netflix. I watched some random movie that was recommended to me on Netflix. I can't find it now since I am busy recording this podcast, but
yeah,
maybe at some point. You know what, girl? Let me look. I don't know. I'm not going to
tell you why. A lot of people question why I love like K-dramas so much.
Why do you?
Besides it being varied in like so many different types of genres that you can find, but because the cultural element is so heavy in it, and the fact that the culture is this sort of like you have to act one way in public and you have to have all these hierarchies and honorifics and stuff like that, but then behind the scenes and your true feelings are this like tumultuous thing, it like registers in the dramas as well. So you get these really nice stories of I am bound to these actions and I can't do what I really want to do. And so you have a lot of good internal conflict. Not saying other places don't, but like you wouldn't see that in a Nollywood drama. You wouldn't see it in American drama where people just often just do what they want and they don't feel beholden to society in a certain way. But I could be like making generalizations.
No, I mean, I mean, you're making a very specific point about K-dramas and what makes them unique and special and good.
Yeah.
There's so much simmering tension to me in Canada, and obviously, I can be totally wrong. What do I know?
No, yeah, there is.
You know, there's a lot of like indigenous land recognition here. Like whenever you go anywhere or do anything, somebody's like,
and that's new.
That's new. And since I've lived here, that's what it's been. But you never see any indigenous people. There's not a lot of indigenous people like in any kind of real positions of power. There's also a lot of racial tension here that's not really spoken about. Like when I first moved here to Vancouver, there was a lot of fear. Like whenever I walk into a store, I would be followed. People would question me when I was entering my building because we live in like East Van, which is like a hipster kind of area. It's very Brooklyn-y over here. And it's very white over here. And it's like a lot of white liberals. But these same people, like whenever I would walk around, because I'm like the only one, and I don't know if it's because I'm the only one, but whatever it is, it's like clear that it's just like not something that they're used to. So I'm just like, stuff's going on here. Like, it's not like 100%. Nothing's going on, you know? It's like, absolutely, it's liberal. I call it America Light. It definitely has the racial tensions. It's there. America's just much more violent, frankly.
Yeah.
Also, we have a different history, you know, but there's a violent history here too with the indigenous. So Canadians can be not forward with how they feel and what they think. But you know what? I feel like this is a session for you to explain to me what's happening.
So you can't control the way people think and feel. And I'll tell you, Canada's just as racist in a lot of parts.
It's just as racist.
It's just not systemic.
Yes, exactly.
For everyone. Whereas to Indigenous people, yes, it is systemic. So in America, Black people, Black slaves, Black Americans, I shouldn't say slaves, enslaved people, the descendants of enslaved people. I want to give them the respect they deserve.
You're educated.
And you know what I'm saying? And Indigenous peoples. A system was created in order to shut them out because Canada doesn't have the same history of slavery as America. Not to say that it didn't have slaves, but it was a little bit different. The systemic stuff was focused on making sure Indigenous peoples were eradicated. Whereas in America, they were, I think, already almost eradicated. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm really bad with history, but all I know is that the systemic thing doesn't feel as strong in Canada as it does in America.
It doesn't.
But that doesn't mean white people aren't nuts.
But it also doesn't feel like I am the target, but it definitely feels like I am not welcome, or it has felt that way at times. There's been plenty of nice people. I've had lots of good experiences, but I've had a few experiences where it's like, have you guys ever seen a Black person?
Yeah.
It's like, why are your buttholes so tight? Oh my God. And I thought you guys were liberals. It's like, ugh, of course. But anyway.
No, it's a strange thing. And another thing with, like think about healthcare. We have this amazing reputation with healthcare around the world. And it is great. But the thing is, it's bureaucratic as fuck.
Yeah.
And it's under-resourced, underfunded.
Yes, it is.
So like doctors
Are
are
scarce. They're kind of scarce. Yeah.
jumping through hoops in order to get good healthcare, even though it's like universal.
It is. But I will say, though, that it still feels better than the US healthcare system.
Yeah.
And I know that this
For
is
sure.
the Working Writer podcast and we're getting so off track. And I swear to anybody who's listening and who is upset that I will get back on track. Okay. But let me just say this, because I have had the experience of living here for 2 years, is that it's so much more efficient and technologically updated or advanced than the US. Like, for instance, we have a health number. You have a personal health number that follows you everywhere. So they, like, anyone, anywhere can pull up your medical history. Whereas I moved around so much when I was a kid in the US. And like every time we moved somewhere new, I'd have to like tell them my new medical history. They'd have to like get files sent from whatever old office or whatever. When COVID happened, there was like immediately like an app that restaurants could scan to see if you were vaccinated. And then when I went to America, when we could travel, there was nothing like that. There was really no real way to tell for real if people's vaccination cards were legitimate. There was so much fraud. It's out of control. Like, at least here, they have an infrastructure. They have invested in other ways in terms of like technology. You know what? All right, let's get back.
No, listen, here's the thing. I'm looking at population. Because like Canada, okay, it's like 38 million. New York State is 20 million.
I know.
That's what the infrastructure is there because it's just smaller.
It's tiny. It's tiny.
And I don't want to shit on Canada. I love Canada so much. I love that we are in this era of sort of accountability. I've always said that Canada has a really great PR team, but like we're not what everyone thinks we are, you know? So I want people to be more accountable to that and explain to the world.
I get you. I mean, I've been complaining, but I've been, complimenting as well. Yeah. I will complain. I'm a complainer. So you're welcome. But let's get back to business. Let's get back to brass tacks, as accountants like to say.
Let's get back to business.
Business. I don't know that song.
The Huns. You don't know? Oh, Lord.
What is that song?
That's from a Disney movie that I'm blanking right now. Like the Huns. Mulan.
The Huns?
Mulan,
is this
baby.
Mulan? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Someone didn't have a childhood.
Yeah. Is that what happened?
Yes. You immediately sprouted.
Tell us your story.
Sure.
I wanted to start by asking about you coming to New York, because that is where we met.
America. Yes.
New York, America, USA. Yes. You were one of my earliest friends when I moved to New York. We started an improv team together called the Day Camp Kids. Mad long history. I think there's almost a decade-long history between us. Yeah. Beautiful thing. I love it. We're not enemies yet. Amazing.
I'll never be an enemy.
I'm just kidding. I just thought you were such a funny person when I first met you. You weren't new to comedy, which was something that I didn't realize. You came from Canada. You have a storied history.
And I was older. I was confident.
You were confident. Yeah. Let's talk about it. How old were you when you moved to New York? And tell us what got you there.
Yeah, so I'm 40 now. And so I moved to New York when I was 27. 2009. So what got me there was back home in Toronto, I went to a college called York. I wanted to be an acting major. And so I auditioned for a school called Ryerson, which was like the big acting school. Didn't get in, so I went to York instead, but it was great. I did like acting on the side, but my major was theater studies and like with a focus on directing and a film studies minor. But I didn't care about school that much. What I cared about was dance. I wanted to be a commercial dancer. I wanted to do music videos at that time. Sean Paul was filming a lot in Toronto. I was in a Wayne Wonder video. I was supposed to be in Rihanna's Pon de Replay.
Oh, wow.
I didn't make it. But that was the industry that I was trying to get into. And then also on the side, I was doing a lot of improv. At that time, we weren't doing long form in the way that New York was doing it. We were doing a lot of like theater sports, a lot of short form, whose line is it anyway stuff. Bo, my husband now, boyfriend then, got a job opportunity to move to New York. At that point, we had been dating for 5 years. I'm like, I'm going with you. So I went, but I didn't want to be illegal. So I went to school. I went to an on-camera acting school because I felt like my theater acting was great. My stage acting was good, but my on-camera wasn't great. So then I went to this on-camera school called NYCDA. It didn't have much of a reputation, but I felt pretty good about the education I got there. But we had an improv class and they're like, you're so good. You should try this place called UCB. And I'm like, what? Sure. And so I went to UCB. I actually hated it. So went to the Pit, and that's where me and you met. And I loved the Pit because it just was.
Hold on. Why did you hate UCB?
Because it was such a boys' club. It has been a boys' club for a really long time, but it was like, it felt very like competitive and it felt very like unattainable.
It was intimidating.
At that point.
Yeah, at the time.
Intimidating. Yeah. But then you went to the Pit and you had like various levels all in one. Oh, I also had trouble with the curriculum. I was often like called like a wild card, and like I couldn't figure out game in the way that they were explaining it, which is so funny because I ended up being a teacher like 10 years later. But at that time I was just like, I just want to make funnies and I don't care that I'm not helping the scene. And so then I went to the Pit, not saying that the Pit does that, makes funnies without caring, but I just felt freer and excelled through the program there faster. And then they sponsored me and it was so wonderful. Like I was an intern there and it just felt like a great home. And I eventually went back to UCB and now, rep it and love it. But long story short, the improv world was super important to me because I had heard with my school that I graduated from, it didn't have much of a reputation. It wasn't Circle in the Square. It wasn't Juilliard. I didn't know how I was going to get attention from agents and managers. But I was told that improv schools are where people were being discovered. And during that time, it was like 30 Rock, Parks and Rec. And it was where improv schools were the place that people were going to find the like newest talent. So I was like, I'm going to focus on this. Then it became like an obsession. And I just wanted to like get on house teams and excel through the system and eventually teach. Subconsciously, it was still like, I still want to be an actor. I still want to be discovered through this. But because I had these goals that were very like insular, all I want to do is get on Lloyd. Great, I'm on Lloyd. All I want to do is get on Harold. Like, because I had these baby steps that kind of seemed attainable, like it went by really fast and it went by stepping stones like a ladder in a very comfortable way. So then at UCBA, I found my Astronomy Club teammates, a bunch of, Black improvisers and comedians who just wanted to get on house teams. And so we all knew each other from various things. And so we pre-formed and would rehearse and then auditioned as a team. And we were like the only second team to ever get on as a full pre-formed team. And then, of course, the first and only Black team they've ever had. It was great. But also, as you know, improv is like transient. Shannon at the time was the AD. She was like, it's like a visa system. You get a visa for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and then you move on. So they only wanted us for 1 year, but we wanted to stay together. So we started writing sketch. And then we wrote a sketch show. And from there, that's where all the sort of like industry attention started coming in. Comedy Central was interested in us. And so we did a web series with them. And it was short at first. It was only 3 episodes, AKA just 3 sketches. But then they liked it so much that they ordered another 3. I remember how like in 2015 to 2018 was like the web series boom. Like you had Super Deluxe and you had Funny or Die and Comedy Central all making these web series. IFC, Comedy Cribs. So separate from Astronomy Club, I was doing a ton of people's web series. And then IFC was like, do you write? Do you have your own web series? So I started writing characters based on sort of the interest from IFC, from programs at UCB called Characters Welcome. Obviously, I was writing sketches with Astronomy Club and taking classes. All this was happening at the same time. So Comedy Central was like using these web series as sort of like incubators to help hone talent and create sort of proof of concept for linear shows. And we were hoping and thought that that's where our avenue was going with them. But at that time, they had more than 3 people of color improv sketch shows. So that was like unheard of. They only could have put 1 on the air. And so they were like, they passed on us. But luckily, we could take what we had, use it as proof of concept to go shop at other places. And the whole like Kenya Barris connection was so auspicious. Like we were in LA taking meetings, and a woman that worked at his company, Annie Weisben, is a lovely producer, EP, knew members of our team from like camp and like school and was following us on social media and was like, hey, you guys are in LA. Why don't you come in and meet Kenya? It was like the next day, wasn't even in a conference room. We were in his office at 8 a.m. in the morning. And he's like, oh, I hear you're going into Netflix the next day.
8 a.m.
Yeah, it was just so last minute going into Netflix.
So early in the morning.
Just, I have an overall deal there. I'd love to work with you guys. When you go in, just say that I'm backing you. And then that's kind of how it happened. And it was so fast. It was unconventional and it was wonderful. And then within like 8 months, 9 months, we went from not having a show to it premiering. So
insane.
That's an insane trajectory. But at the same time, if you notice, it was just ladder steps. It just felt like the next logical step. And then I achieved it. And I shouldn't say circumstance and opportunity was there. And I was able to grab onto it. And then pandemic happened.
You worked extremely hard for a very long time.
That's nice of you to say. And it's true.
Well, you did. I'm not saying anything that's not true.
But it wasn't as a writer.
Well, you're still writing. You're writing characters. You're writing sketches. Mm-hmm. You're still writing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason to discount yourself.
I didn't even mention all of my like Toronto work that I did. I really hustled in Toronto as well.
Really
like,
didn't.
I did a ton of solo shows and just was always trying to do improv. Like, it's crazy because I would never do it now. Out every night, just doing a show. And you did that too, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Go through the streets of New York, 2 shows a night, trying to
sometimes more
get seen and having fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was interesting.
So I want to keep talking about your career, but we're going to take a short break and then we'll dig into it a little bit more when we come back.
Sounds good.
I'm quickly interrupting this episode to tell you about theworkingwriter.com. It's a resource I created for screenwriters and creative entrepreneurs that includes a blog, a course, and this podcast. Right now, when you sign up for the mailing list, you'll get my free guide to breaking into television. It's everything I've learned about breaking in, and it's basically what I've said to any writer who's asked to pick my brain over coffee. If you're working on breaking into TV, I hope it gives you some concrete steps to get to the next level in your journey. Go to theworkingwriter.com and sign up for the mailing list now to download your free guide to breaking into TV. Are you a screenwriter who's feeling stuck or lost or just wanting to take your career to the next level? Then you need to check out The Working Writer School. The Working Writer School is an online course and community I created that trains screenwriters to become creative entrepreneurs who can confidently navigate building a professional network, attract managers and agents, manage their personal finances, pitch a TV show, and consistently produce original work they're proud of. When you join with one of our flexible membership options, you'll get the course, plus live monthly virtual workshops with writers from Portlandia, American Dad, The Last OG, and more. Go to theworkingwriter.com/school and sign up today to get training, mentorship, and support from a community of writers just like you. Now, back to the episode. And we're back. So I love what you said about reaching your goals incrementally, because this is something that I really always try to remind people who want to be a freelance writer, to be a freelance performer and things like that. It can feel like such an overwhelming big goal and like such a huge mountain to climb that I'm like, the only real way to make it manageable is to break these goals down into small pieces to reach your goals incrementally. At this point, you hustled for a really long time. Not a really long time, but like 5 years or so in Toronto. Would you say it was about 5 years? And then probably another 5 or so years in New York.
Yeah, I would say if it was like it wasn't a true hustle. In your early 20s, you're just trying to survive and doing the things you like.
You really are.
You know, I moved there when I was 19 and I left when I was 28. So 9 years of going towards that. And then another 9 years in New York before things started to really pop off.
It was a minute, which to me means that you are well prepared for the success that you've had. This experience, you know, getting hooked up with Kenya Barris and then all of a sudden getting a TV show on Netflix seems like it was such a whirlwind. And from my understanding, from talking to you, from talking to Gerard and, you know, some other people on the Astronomy Club team, it's my understanding that you guys were also the writer's room. So you were the writer's room as well as the on-camera talent. So like, can you talk about what that experience was like? Did you guys get to hire any other writers or was it just you guys? Like, who show ran? Like, what was the deal? Yeah.
Our showrunner was also and had a sort of head writer capacity as well. His name's Dan Powell. He's icon, legend.
Was he Amy Schumer's showrunner? Yeah, absolute
Amy Schumer's.
legend.
He also did, and I Think You Should Leave. Like, he's done a ton of sketches.
I love
sketch
I Think You Should
shows.
Leave. Okay, awesome. How did you guys land that guy as the showrunner?
A connection with our agency.
Awesome.
It was early on when we were still working with Comedy Central in a web series sort of format that he was sort of brought in to sort of help us formulate it into more of a pitch.
I love it.
No, it was great. So the room was very, I don't want to say unconventional, because I don't know if a lot of writers' rooms that with people who previously know each other, like it could be very similar to what was like our room. But, we had been working together for minimum 6 years at that point.
Yeah.
We had been writing sketch. Was it 6 years? Maybe just 5. We got together 2014.
Still many years. It wasn't a new group.
Yeah, 2014. Then we did just improv for a year. 2015 is when we wrote the thing. Maybe like 3 years, not 5, 6. I'm exaggerating, but 3 or 4 years. It was like you going into work with your friends and your family. Some disagreements because it's like your family, you know what I mean? In Astronomy Club, there's so many good and funny voices that you have to sort of like really fight for your idea to be taken seriously. It was nice to have someone like Dan in the room who could be the person that would be the sort of veto and help us through those moments. We also had 2 other writers, Christine Nangle, who's an legend icon and a friend and a mentor. She now works for, I think, Simpsons, but she might have left there, but she has been doing stuff for years, especially with Dan. And then Ryan Perez. Do you know Ryan Perez?
I don't think I know that person. Yeah.
Oh, he is an actor writer.
Don't read
great.
The bio now.
Well, I didn't know he wrote for SNL, but he did.
Oh, no way. So you guys had a great team assembled. So it was you guys plus Dan Powell plus these other talented writers, which is, so you're really set up for success.
Yeah.
So what was it like then doing the writer's room and performing? Was there a pre-production period where you were just doing the writing, or did it kind of merge at all with production?
Yeah. In our treatment, we had a list of sketch ideas that is the kind of stuff that we lean towards. But no, we had a writer's room where we came up with fresh new ideas. And that was, I think, 10 weeks. And then what was great about the show too is, as we were creators, we were writers, we were also EPs. And so we would get the opportunity to produce our sketches, the ones that got picked. There were few sketches that were co-written, but if they were, then those 2 writers would produce it, or like what they would choose. I'll produce this one and you produce something else. That's, I think, one of the most satisfying parts about writing sketch for me. And also I directed sketch for a really long time in New York. And it's just being there in the writer's room, shooting the shit, riffing, coming up with these nuggets of an idea and then laughing about them. And then all the way to fruition where you see the end result. And it's so good and so funny. And in regards to my show and in Black Lady Sketch Show that I just worked on, just so polished. I love it. It's very satisfying. By the way, I have Invisalign. So if I lisp and make a shish sound like that, it's not intentional. It's the plastic in my mouth.
I didn't even notice. Good for you.
Oh,
all right.
Thanks.
Baller with your Invisalign.
It's relatively new.
All right.
Yeah.
This sounds like a really wonderful experience. It sounds like you really got a lot of hands-on kind of sketch production experience.
Yeah, I did.
So I was so sad when the show was canceled. I feel like most shows don't really get their groove until season 2. So what was that like? I still feel like it's like a privilege, like most people don't get a TV show. And then to have one, and then the privilege of having it canceled.
I mean, of course it hurt when it happened, but also it was February 2020. When I think about whether we could have even done a second season, I don't think we could have. I hear about how hard it was for Black Lady Sketch Show to sort of run during pandemic. I try to think of our show and it would have just been like really tough. At the time, it was tough. And like to get the notice during Black History Month, we hated that.
Very rude.
It was very rude.
Downright racist, actually. Yeah.
But I will say this. still trying to get work at Netflix. So Netflix, this isn't shade to you, but you now have an MO of canceling great shows. So
They do.
like you said, I feel privileged that I'm part of this sorority, fraternity club of people who got canceled for a season and people were unhappy with it. So yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I was really sad. I feel like we just met you guys. What is the deal?
Yeah.
And also, to me, it was like, when was the last time you got to see a Black cast on a sketch show since like In Living Color? I mean, Black Lady sketch show, but this is different. It's
preformed and just like the chemistry of a team that has been working together for a while. Yeah.
Is there anything that you can say if I was about to get a show? Is there any advice you would give me?
If you were already at the stages of like,
sure,
you had a show pitched and you were waiting to hear back?
I'm about to start my own show.
Ah.
I'm past the pitching process. I'm at the process where I'm about to start my own show. Is there anything you wish you knew looking back? Is there anything you would say to anybody? Because this is not an experience a lot of people get, basically, to have a show.
Yeah, looking back, I wish I had a lot of fun shooting the sketches and we had a really great director team. Looking back, though, I wish I was more understanding of everybody, the fact that everyone is just trying to make it work, and also that sketch shows don't have great budgets. Now I know how much sketch shows are given and how much they are expected to sort of like present with the money they've got. Everybody there is just trying to make it work. And a few of our members, we came from, working with Comedy Central that had a ton of money. And then also our web series was just single sketches. They're not entire episodes of 5 or 6 sketches each, and then 6, 7 episodes. And so I wish I had the foresight to realize that, it's not going to be the same sort of output as someone who only has to do one sketch for that week. Whereas in our show, it was just so many more sketches and so many more things. I just wish that I had been more understanding and kinder and not expecting like everyone in Hollywood to have been perfect at their job. I'm a little bit hard on people, I think.
Interesting.
I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So,
interesting.
But I'm learning. I think it's a thing I'm gonna, my dharma in life to learn. To be more patient.
First of all, that's awesome self-awareness. It is something that even I was surprised by. I mean, I don't think there's any way to really know and understand until you're in a writer's room, like just the sheer amount of work and how much it takes and how everyone is trying to get to the same destination, which is to make a good show, because everybody wants to be a part of a good show. Yes. And there's budget constraints, there's location constraints, there's production constraints, there's all kinds of things. And then on top of that, you add COVID-19.
Yep.
It is just a mess, girl. So it is just a huge amount. It's a huge labor. It's a huge amount of work. My first show I was on, I think we had, I don't remember how many episodes we had, but it wasn't a full 24 episode order. And it was so much work and we had such late nights that I was like, I don't know how I would have done it if we had like 24 episodes. Like, holy crap, you need a huge staff for that many episodes. It's so much. It's a ton of work. Great self-awareness.
I feel like that's why we're, striking soon, because we've got all these smaller rooms that are doing the work of what should be larger rooms.
Yeah.
And it's funny, every gig that I've done as a writer, I've done animation, I've done late night in a way, like evergreen late night, I've done narrative and I've done sketch. You would think, this would be easier because it's not narrative, or this would be easier because it's this. They're all hard.
They're all hard.
They're all hard, and they're all just like, you have to do way more work than you thought, you ever thought that you did. You would need to.
You have to be collaborative.
Yeah.
And collaborative in multiple ways, because for me, at least, because I'm so much of an introvert, like I really get drained from being around a lot of people all day. Like I definitely get energy from it, but if I'm like around people all day, I get like really drained. And to me, that can be very mentally draining after like weeks and weeks in a room. So I feel like you have to be very like mentally sharp and do a lot to like give yourself mental energy, because you're pitching all day, you're with people all day. If you're an extrovert, that's great for you. But if you're an introvert, that might be a little bit more difficult.
Yes.
It's just a huge labor of love to make a TV show. There's just so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
At this point, I feel like you've had such a wonderful career. You just got to work Was this your second season on Black Lady Sketch Show or your
No,
first?
this was my first. This was my first, but I had been submitting regularly because, I love the whole idea of it. Black lady sketches. Like, that is
Absolutely.
me.
It's you.
Since they were first announced back in 2020, I was like, what an amazing thing. I want to be a part of it so bad. And luckily, I was able to be this last season, and it was a great position. I was co-head writer with Chloe Hilliard, who's an amazing comedian, and
Chloe's wonderful.
I was able to co-EP, which is hard but good. It's like producing is a whole other beast, and a lot of writers don't get to do it because of this whole mini room situation.
Yeah.
It's a really big part of, it's a really separate part of the writer's room, but like should, I think, be experienced by as many writers as possible if they can.
So you've had a pretty storied career at this point. You just worked on a Black Lady Sketch Show as co-EP and co-head writer, which is amazing. What's next for you?
Probably development. That has been, on the back burner ever since I got representation. It's also something that feels more real to me now as I continue to take on positions. It's like I feel like I'm training in order to make my own show. And I have always been someone who makes their own thing, whether it be a solo show, my own characters, even the collaborativeness of Astronomy Club. It's like I have a lot of confidence and faith in my vision and feel like it's good stuff. Not everyone may like it. Not everyone may resonate with it, but I think it's good. I think it's good enough to be out there. So yeah, and knowing how much of a business this is, how much of a sort of like machine it takes in order to make, a project work. I feel confident in that as well. And so development and sort of running my own stuff. That being said, I did just book an acting job. That was great. It's a pilot, so I'm waiting to hear back if it'll get picked up. So I might not be doing much writing in the next couple of years, but I also will always be writing. It's this weird thing where I might not be working on the writer side of things, but will always be trying to create my own work on the back burner.
You're so multi-talented, Mo. Do you think there's something that you prefer more? Like, I was just going to ask you if you wanted to keep performing. Like, do you think you're more of a performer or more of a writer?
Thank you for that. Very nice compliment. The pandemic, I don't know about you, but it did a number on me. I think everyone was fine. I think the pandemic only affected me, only. Just it did a thing with my self-esteem that I'm still sort of, especially with performance, that I'm still sort of dealing with.
Getting over.
The pandemic was really good to me when it came to my writing career because Zoom rooms became a thing and I was able to work from anywhere. And when you are doing one thing for a long time, you start to worry about whether you're still good in the other thing. And so when it comes to your question of, is there a preference? No. The preference is me doing something I feel good in. Luckily, acting, the more I get acting work where I do feel really good that I'm doing it, I think I'll be more inclined to do more performance and, feel really confident in it. They're both tough because, when you're an actor, you're under people's scrutiny. I think that's my biggest thing. It's like, I'm not an internet person. I used to be, but I don't like putting myself out there for people to sort of comment on and critique. But then it's like, how are you going to be an actor if you don't like people's comments and critique? But at the same time, it's like, I don't do the acting for putting myself out there. But then I'm doing this weird catch-22 loop where it's like, I'm not doing it for other people, but then I'm also worried about what other people are going to say. And, it's crazy. So,
I mean, it's not crazy.
But then with writing is tough,
Yeah.
The work of it and the sort of like forcing yourself to do it and to not be upset by that first vomit that you put out on paper and like editing over and over and being okay with that.
It's usually trash.
Yeah. So they both have ups and downs. It all depends on where I am in the moment.
Okay. I wanted to back it up a little bit because I definitely think the pandemic did a number on all of us, myself included. I did find myself incredibly anxious during the pandemic for whatever reasons. I don't even know because I'm like such a germaphobe, but that wasn't even my big thing. Like to me, I was just like, yeah, there's a pandemic, so stay inside. I'll stay safe. I wasn't nervous about getting sick. I don't know what happened. I think it just gave me a time to sit with all my anxieties, and they became very big. But what do you think happened with your self-esteem in terms of acting?
I think it is lack of reps. I think it is, I'll be honest, weight gain. I used to like the way I look on camera. Now I don't really like it. But I try really hard to just think about what the character is and not care about looks. I know that's so stupid, but also as, someone who focuses on comedy, it's like, am I even funny anymore? The comedy world is so different now. It's like, it's that sort of thing. And I also worry about I don't know. I worry about being corny and cheesy, but I'm like, that is me. I don't know. It's a weird, stupid thing.
That's funny. I mean, I so relate. I 100% do. I remember I was supposed to do on-set punch-up for Black Lady Sketch Show starting in February of 2020, but then obviously, or I think in March or something, sometime. Basically, the pandemic pushed it, and we started in October. So I did work on Black Lady Sketch Show during the pandemic, but it was in October of 2020 that we started. That time that we spent not doing much, because I wasn't doing much stand-up, I wasn't doing much of anything during that time. By the time we started, I was like, I'm not even funny. I was having panic attacks. I was like, oh my God, I'm not even funny. I haven't been outside in months. You know what I mean? It's I think it was tough for everybody, and it's totally understandable. And, I'm so much easier on myself now because it went fine and it was a good time. But I was just like, oh my God, all kinds of people were going through all kinds of tough times.
Yeah. And you can be funny, but you might not necessarily be good at onset punch-ups, because I'm not good at onset punch-ups.
I was not.
I'm so bad at it.
I figured it out.
It's hard.
I figured it out, especially because, there were already so many jokes. There was already so many alts available, having to come up with alts on top of that. And I wasn't in the room so I had to do a lot of catch up.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a good exercise for me because I am a slow joke writer, and to have to come up with jokes on the spot, I was panicking, but I figured it out.
Yeah. I commend you, because that's not an easy job.
So good, funny. I was like, sure. Yeah, I love it. I'll do it. And it was fun.
The way you lean back, they can't see.
They can't see me leaning, but I lean back like the rapper.
Fat Joe.
Who said lean back? Fat Joe.
Yeah.
But the industry has changed so much since we started. But I don't think that it's changed just for people who are entering. I think it's changed for the people who are currently in it. It has changed so much since we've gotten into it, and I think it'll continue to change as the world changes. Is there anything that you're doing, do you think, to manage what feels like constant change in the industry?
I'm trying to get back to what made me happy and what lit me up when I first started. I'll never be able to get that sort of hunger that I used to have, where the priority was performance and writing. Fuck everything else. I don't think I'll get back to that, because as I get older, it's I realize other things matter. My relationship with my family matters. They're getting old and I want to be around them. And having a dog and loving my puppy matters more than me going and doing an improv show. But back in the day, nothing else mattered. And I was doing everything towards all my part-time jobs, all my whatever was going towards performance. So long roundabout way of saying, I just I'm trying to do the things that lit me up before. I was scared to get back into improv, but when I got on stage and I remembered how much of a supportive art form it is and how stupid of an art form it is and the silliness that we're doing, it was very fun, and I want to do more shows. And I think I get funnier when I do more shows, because also, as someone who was a performer for a long time, you get fed by the audience. Live theater and live shows are so much different than being in a writer's room, which feels oftentimes very competitive, or it feels like you might say something that you think is really funny and people will be like, yeah, great. But, an audience is very they're just in awe of the fact that you like maybe have the confidence to get up there.
Yeah.
Maybe you're saying something that resonates and relates to them. It may not be the most hilarious thing, but they're just like, wow, yeah, she got that. I do that all the time, you know?
Oh, yeah. The hardest audience to please is like a room of comics or a room of writers.
Yeah.
Like, not impressed.
Not impressed.
But, you know, of course, it's like we're talking to an audience of our peers. We all do it for a living. So, of course, it's hard to make us laugh, you know?
Yeah.
Not personal. Mm-hmm. But I love that you are dealing with change by just focusing on what matters to you. And your priorities are different nowadays, which they should be. I definitely think there's a time in life to hustle and to focus on work. And there's a time in life to not do that, to care about the rest of your life. Is there anything else you want to say to the hustler, the person that is breaking in right now?
Yeah. You have to make your own stuff. So I'm so sorry, but you're not going to get hired any other way. I think you got to write a pilot. You got to fucking shoot a web series.
No one's ever said it so straight up. Yep. I'm sorry.
I know so many people who are like, how do I get a job writing? And it's like, do you have a sample? No. Bitch, you got to write that, whether it be a spec or, I mean, not even don't do a spec, but that's practice for you. But like, you got to write a sample. And if you're smart, write a script and shoot it yourself. If anything, like I tell my Canadian friends this a lot because there's a lot of government support for arts, but no money in it. So it's like you get the money from the government, you get a grant to make a thing. Thing is great. You put it out there. People watch it, but they don't spend any money to watch it. Or like you'll get a good review in like a paper. And then like that's it. It's very hard to grow steadily into like a sensation or anything. Like I tell them, get that grant or whatever. I know it's easier said than done, but like use that money to write something, make something, put it into festivals all over the world, try to get some notoriety that way. Because at the end of the day, proof of concept, I think is what everyone needs to know. King. It's king, that they need to know that you can make something and that it has a unique voice that feels like your own. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Monique Moses, for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Much appreciated.
I could talk for hours.
We could, but that is not what we do here. All right. Bye-bye. All right. You heard her. That's what she said. She said, if you want to do stuff, you got to make stuff. So start making stuff. Only good stuff comes out of making stuff. Even if you don't get hired, you still made a thing, and then someone either laughed at it or got some joy out of it, or maybe learned something from it. You connected with another human being. You connected with yourself to create it. I mean, only good stuff comes out of making stuff. I really think that. And then every time you make something, you get better at making stuff. And I'm talking about writing. I'm talking about making a film. I'm talking about creating. So make stuff. Do stuff. Until next time, homie, get out there, get to work. There's no way I could do this podcast alone. I wanted to give a big shout out and thank you to our editor, Justin Asher, and to our other production assistants, Jemima Lariston, Maya Racole, and Nicole Edwards.